Hello and welcome back to the Myles Ruttencutter Podcast. Today I have Miss Tia Bess. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I sure would, Myles. So my name is Tia Bess, and I'm an investigative journalist who's been on assignment for about 5 years now. And do I have a scoop for you?
All right, let's get started. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. This nation was built on truth, and truth still matters. Welcome to the Myles Ruttencutter Podcast. Here, faith guides politics, and conviction leads to conversation. I'm Myles, and here we stand firm, speak boldly, and seek what's right, no matter the cost. Let's get started. All right, let's get started.
All right.
So first of all, I want to go into your childhood. Let's just start there.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it feels like I'm sitting on a therapy couch telling my story. Now, I will say this. I'm all about laughs. I find a way to alchemize my trauma and my pain with just laughing about it, being lighthearted. So for me, my childhood, I initially started off in a 2-parent home, military veteran. And, with my father being in the military and self-medicating from the pain and everything that he saw in war, it ultimately led to, PTSD and my family splitting up. I was raised by my mom, who's legally blind in one eye. Like, when I tell people my story is like the smallest violin where it's so bad. But I was raised by my mom. She did the best that she could do with all the generational curses and the trauma that she went through in her life. And it was a hard life, from abuse to incest to assault. But I've always found a way just to keep on going and to make it out of what I was going through.
That's amazing. That's good. And I think a lot of stories start off like that, It's not always like,
rainbows.
Rainbows and sunshine. But I think it's really interesting and good that you're willing to share that.
Well, I feel that I'm a person of faith. I'm not religious. I'm more spiritual. But I'm a person of faith where I feel that if I went through it, it's my duty to share it with other people so that they can get out of it, or so that they won't fall into the traps that I fell into.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you're here to share your story today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, where do we start? Where would you like to start?
Woo! Where do we start? So let's see. Let's talk about, where do you want to go?
We can
I'm your
start
guest.
with first contact.
Okay.
Would you like to start there?
Yes.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so initially, let's start from the beginning. Jacksonville, Florida. I was like any other high school student, motivated, ready to do something with my life. I'm going to be honest with your fans, and I'll be honest with you. I was off of Myrtle Avenue in Moncrief. For most of y'all who know, that's the side of town where you lock your doors and make sure your windows are up. And I made it out of that. I actually graduated from high school, 3.8 GPA on the 4.0 scale. Scholarships, just ready to move out of the neighborhood that I was in, buy a car, secure a big girl job, and really make a difference in my city and in my state. Unfortunately, I was exploited. I got a job at a local restaurant off of Lane Avenue. It was Basil's. And I thought it was the opportunity for me to work 2 jobs while I just enrolled as a freshman in college. And that was, looking back, that was one of the worst mistakes that I could have done because, I have a disability. I have narcolepsy and sleep apnea. And I was looking for an employer who would be flexible with that schedule, understand my accommodations, and that wasn't the case, Myles.
Do you think that's something that we lack, is being able to have empathy and being able to find where those accommodations need to be met?
Well, I think so. In my spare time, I'm an employment specialist for adults with disabilities. And I know it seems like it's full circle because now I'm the adult that I wanted in my life to come protect me, to come help me. So I help individuals with disabilities find jobs. And knowing what I know about employee rights, knowing what I know about disability rights, I want to make sure that the younger generations and anyone who has an exceptionality understands that you have rights There are people who will work with you to make sure that you find a job that's accommodating. But I really do think that's a problem, especially for our young people. There's no class like home ec. I would say I'm dating myself, Myles, but there's no preparation class for when you graduate high school to understand about the real world. In a perfect society, you would get that from your home life, and your parents would sit down and talk to you. But that's not normally the case with everyone.
Yeah.
And we need to do a better job in the state of Florida and nationwide on preparing our young people for the future.
Absolutely. And see, I do this podcast where I go and interview anyone who's running for public office. No matter who you are, I'm welcome to have you on. And a big part of that, I've been interviewing a lot of school board members. And when it comes to having like training, for example, to go become an electrician or to go become an accountant or something. Yes. We have those programs in the schools. Do you think that's something that should be pushed more, or what is your stance on those?
Well, let's see. It took me, and I'll admit this on camera because I'm resilient, it took me 15 years to earn my bachelor's degree. You know, like life gets in the way, and a lot of people out there listening can understand that. And I wouldn't much say get in the way, but things happen in life. Jobs, marriages, divorces, kids, sick parents, you know, and I did what every person does. As soon as I got out of high school, I went into college full time. I worked full time, and that might not have been the best thing to do. I could have paced myself, but, you know, I see it happen a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like we put so much on our plate because we want to be successful, but college doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes a trade school might be the best, and I think we need to bring back more trade schools and, you know, give our students those career inventory tests so that they can harness their gifts and use it for, you know, what's best for them.
Totally.
So like some people can't sit in the office from 9 to 5 at a cubicle. I would go crazy if I had a wall here and a wall here. But some people need to be outdoors. You know, we need to teach more of our young people to be entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
You know, we can do this. Not everyone is a worker bee.
Do you think if those programs were opened up to you when you were younger, do you think that would have maybe shifted the course of your story?
Myles, definitely. You know, now that I'm an employment specialist, I look back and I'm in shock. Like I ask myself, why weren't these programs available on the north side where I was at? You know, I really could have used that help understanding that, yes, you know, you have a condition, you have a disability, you have programs through vocational rehab that can actually help you find a job and secure a job, and we're going to go with your passions. That would have been a godsend, but it's swept under the rug and no one really talks about it.
Absolutely.
But we need more of that.
So more programs in those areas like Moncrief or Norwood.
Yes.
Those would be something you would, I mean, obviously you're not running for public office right now, but that's something. Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully after this interview, a couple people lose their jobs and you'll be able to swoop in and take it.
Shush. But it's true. Like, honestly,
totally.
If I would have known about that, you know, like, why aren't we having these outreach conversations in our public schools? You know,
Totally.
Why aren't we meeting people where they're at so that they can have a better life? Instead of complaining about the crime, let's see how to get to the root of the problem.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean lining the politicians' pockets for photo ops and kissing babies, if they still do that. But you understand that.
Yeah.
You know, like we have to be boots on the ground. You have to get to the nitty gritty and put your money where your mouth is.
Absolutely. And I couldn't imagine Jimmy Peluso going around kissing babies. That would cause a lot of issues.
That part.
So I do think that's really interesting. And when it comes to our state, right, here in Florida or our city here in Jacksonville, I kind of want to go beyond that. We look at the UK, and there was the Independent Rape Gang Inquiry Report. You heard about that? With 250,000.
Yes.
250,000 victims in the UK were trafficked by primarily Muslim men. And I do want to know, like, what you think about that and how you think that also corresponds here in the United States.
Don't cut me off, guys. Okay. I'm going to speak from a place of mercy and kindness. And this really comes from a place of lived experience. And this is pretty hard for me to say, and I've been working through it, but I'm a survivor of human trafficking under Sharia law out of Jacksonville, Florida. I know that was like a whole tongue twister right there. But I mean, you have people who come to this country with different beliefs on how a woman should speak, how a woman should dress, how she should behave, who she can marry. There's a lot of restrictions on that. And through my experience, I noticed that a lot of these young women or the young girls, they operate out of a place of fear. That shouldn't be the case. For myself, I complied a lot because I was afraid. I didn't know who to speak up to. I didn't know who to ask for help. To be honest with you, Myles, I didn't know who to trust. You see so many backdoor deals, you don't know who to trust. So for the UK, these young ladies, they deserve to live a life where they can walk down the street without being catcalled or harassed or, being stalked or followed because they're rejecting people. That's not okay. Your body belongs to you. No one should be putting their hands on you or forcing you to do something that you don't want to do.
Absolutely.
And that's the great part about being in America, where we have these protections, where things are done. I mean, we have to pay. We have to. I'm getting all passionate.
You're good.
We have to pay attention to this on a global scale, because that's 250,000 young ladies, potential mothers, whose lives are altered because of the choices of a few individuals. I have a problem with that, especially being a survivor myself, and my heart goes out to them and their families.
Absolutely.
That it's just, we got to do something.
It's a terrible situation, and it's the complete opposite of what we call America, what we call American values.
Yes.
Again, and I'll say it once, and I'll say it again. Our country is founded on Christian values, and Christian values don't say you can hate. Like the Quran says in 4 verse 34 that you're able to beat your wife if she's disobedient. That's not what our country is.
No.
That is not what our country is founded on. It is completely foreign to our country and our values that we value here as a society.
Yes, and I've seen it myself. I mean, I've worked at the mosque previously, and one of my biggest concerns is that I saw this from all backgrounds: women who were Bangladeshi, women who were Pakistani, Indian, Somalian. The common problem that these women have is that they don't know who to go to if their husbands are mistreating them.
Wow.
And I've seen one young lady, she didn't want to get married. She was from India, and she was a student in college. And she also went to the mosque, and her family said, you're stopping school, you're quitting school, and you're going back to India to get married so that you can bring your husband here.
That's terrible.
That's terrible. She had dreams of being an interior designer. That was her dream. And what happens to a dream deferred? You start to lose hope. And I looked around inside the masjid, and I saw a lot of women who were just the cooks, the cleaners, the babysitters. There was no special uplifting for them as a mother. They only had one job, and it was to listen to their husband, and obey, and be subservient.
That's terrible. And like I said, it's completely foreign to American society. And it's a terrible story to hear. And I don't really know exactly how to attack it, but I mean, and
it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot
absolutely.
to unpack from all types of perspectives, especially globally. My calling now has been more towards being a human trafficking survivor advocate globally. So that's what I'm working on now. That's my current project, in addition to having my journalism credentials. So I want to use those two together to give a platform for survivors of human trafficking, domestic violence, just to bring this awareness.
Absolutely.
With no agenda, with no political pandering. Just, I want you to clear your heart and unpack it.
Human trafficking isn't a political issue. It's a moral one.
It's a moral issue, and it's nonpartisan.
Absolutely.
It happens to everyone on every type of economic level.
And I think it's interesting, the story you brought up earlier, where I'm going to try and kind of make this political, because they just, the Supreme Court just ruled on birthright citizenship. And you mentioned the story where the woman had to go to Bangladesh to bring her husband back here so that they could get married and he could have, well, that's not birthright citizenship. However, that's what they'll do is they'll come over here, they'll produce like rabbits, and their children will have citizenship. And we've seen this in all over the Middle East. A lot of those countries that we see today were Christian countries that have now turned into Muslim countries because of an immense amount of people moving in there and then having an immense amount of kids. So I'm wondering, like, what is your stance on that?
Let's see, with birthright citizenship. So, and this, like I say, it may be a trigger warning for some people watching this, but can I say I have to be honest? You know, my situation was a bit unique because being a survivor of human trafficking, and at that time, you know, I was impregnated so that my child could be a U.S. citizen, even though I'm a citizen. And it was, this is like the most horrible thing, but it was part of their scheme or part of their plan that if I became pregnant and applied for my husband to come to America, that it would make them expedited. You know, like everyone, when I went overseas, I was in Tunisia, I was in North Africa, and I saw how America was glorified. Like everyone, it's America. You're an American. You're Beyonce, huh? You look like Beyonce. I'm like, not everybody black is Beyonce. See, I got you red. No, but it's true. Like I went there and it was a culture shock because I'm like, why is there a hole in the ground? You got to pee in that? Like what? Like what is this? Where are the gloves at? Is he touching that with no gloves? You know, just so many cultural differences. But people, you know, foreigners in other countries, what they do is they watch the American media, the news, the TV, and they want to emulate everything that we do, good, bad, and ugly. Like, can you imagine seeing an Arabic guy talking about, what's up, my nick? No. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
You know, the hip hop, the rap, and you see it. But, you know, all jokes aside, with this birthright citizenship, it has become a business.
Absolutely.
You know, I've heard stories from residents of Tunisia, and they'll tell you, if you want to get to France or if you want to get to Italy, they'll tell you how much it costs, you know, which smugglers there are, and the entire system, what to say, how to defraud the government to circumvent immigration laws.
Actually, someone earlier just sent me an ad in Mexico where it was a sign saying, I don't even remember exactly what it said, but on it was saying, for $5,000, we'll ship you to the United States so you can have your kid there. And then they'll just deport you and send you back. So it's like, oh, okay, well, my child was born there.
That's true.
All right, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And it's ridiculous.
And that's really interesting because, you know, I was part of a international domestic violence group. I spoke to a young lady. She was Yemeni. She was from Yemen. So she was a little bit darker, but she lived in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, there are no resources for domestic violence. And if you're a foreigner, you will never gain citizenship. You can't do that. You know, if you're from somewhere else, that's where you're from. To gain Saudi citizenship is not something that you can have.
It's very interesting.
And I think that America, we need to tighten up. We need to do a lot better of who we're letting into this country because not everyone has our best interest in heart.
Absolutely. And I wanted to bring up the statistic because I thought it was very interesting because you're exactly right. People coming here don't have the best interest at heart.
No. Especially
when they're coming here illegally, already breaking our laws to come here. And I wanted to just bring this statistic up because it was very, very interesting. Egypt was once Christian, and today it's 95% Muslim. Syria was once Christian, now it's 87% Muslim. Turkey was once Christian under the Byzantine Empire, and today it's 99% Muslim. Jordan was once Christian, today it's 97% Muslim. Iraq was once Christian, which was under the Assyrian Empire, Assyrian Christianity, the cradle of Assyrian Christianity. Today it's 97% Muslim. You can't tell me that's not going to happen to Western countries, because this is what they're doing. They're coming in here, and they're taking over. And I think your story really shows, like, this foreign idea has already taken over other countries, and they're going to do it here as well. And you're a living, breathing example of someone who's been able to survive past that.
Yes. You know, And I don't want it to feel like it's a us versus them situation.
Absolutely.
It's never that, because at one point that was me. I was so, and I'll tell you, Myles, I was so hurt by the church. In high school, I lost my brother and I lost my father. So junior year, senior year, I had 2 deaths, and I was hurt. And I went to my church just trying to figure out, what do I do? Who do I talk to? And they were too busy for me.
It's terrible. And
at that point, I just was mad at everybody, everything. I was stuck somewhere between an atheist and I'm not going to church. And, my mom would drag me from time to time, but eventually I fell off. And, when I did get a job for an employer who was Muslim, it was something new. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of people are following, is that it's something new. They want to learn more about it. It interests them.
Yeah.
And you kind of got to do more research. I did my research. I started going to the mosque. My employer would close his business and say, well, you don't have a car, you should just come with us. Which that should not happen at your jobs. Ever. Goes against employee rights. But, I was Christian, so I just decided, let me go see what it's about. Mm-hmm. And little by little, I would find stuff, in my little locker area about Islam, DVDs, books about why Christianity is wrong. So in a way, it was grooming.
Yeah.
It was grooming. And, a lot of these people, put it like this. At one point, because I was so bitter and I was so hurt, I started recruiting people to Islam. I promised myself, so I'm never going to go, never say what you're never going to do. Mm-hmm. But I said, I'm never going to go to a church again. I never want to, say the name of Jesus out of my mouth. Like, I was just a hurt young person.
Absolutely.
And that happens on so many scales when no one's listening to you. And I believe that, you should ask questions. We can all get along, but we need to have clear boundaries. Mm-hmm. And for me, just not knowing where to get help at. And there are predators who take advantage of that. And that's why things are spreading so fast in the U.S.
Absolutely.
I have family that's Muslim, that blood family. I have family that's the Nation of Islam. I have family who's 5%ers, because there's so many different groups of it. Mm-hmm. But even within those groups, they can't even get along.
Oh, yeah.
There's infighting within the groups. And I think that it's just, we're not in a good spot as a country.
I agree with you. And I think that that's a big issue when you said that there's the small groups that don't even get along.
No.
I think that within the church, we don't have enough of that kind of conversation. Within the Christian church, we don't have that kind of conversation. We need churches to be able to come together, bring their pastors, and have a debate. Have a conversation where they're able to, okay, this is what I believe, this is what you believe. Where can we both agree? Which is hopefully that Jesus Christ is Savior, Jesus Christ is Lord.
Where's that Overton window? Where's that Overton window? Where's that 80-20? We might not agree about 80% of things, but we can agree about 20.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that's where the Christian church is beginning to go the same way as Islam, and that's not good.
No.
So I think it's very important that you brought that up.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to take a break here, and then we'll come back right after the ad. Best EDU Season 3 is here. This season will bring new faces, new courses, and new videos. This year, I'm introducing Best EDU Tutors. Welcome back. So let's start off again talking about Paul Renner. I know you mentioned him briefly in the pre-show, and I'd be very interested in hearing, what do you think Paul Renner is doing when it comes to advocacy for human trafficking?
Well, let's see. Because I'm skeptical about everybody. You can even ask Ron DeSantis. The first time, I did not vote for him. And I told him in a press conference in front of everybody, sorry, Ron, but I'm being honest. He had to earn my vote. Same thing with every politician out there. I'm not for identity politics. I'm not going to vote for you just because you're black. I'm not going to vote for you just because you're a woman. I'm not going to vote for you just because you're in my neighborhood. I want to know, what are your issues and where do you stand at? Mm-hmm. And I think the younger generation and a lot of just the everyday American, we're just tired of being lied to. But I went to an event as an investigative journalist, and I looked at what Paul Renner was saying. I'm for the property taxes. You have too many elderly people who are losing their property because they're in old age and they're not able to earn that money. So I'm for that. Now, when it comes to immigration and corruption, I'm there 100%. There should be stronger penalties for human traffickers. There should be, we shouldn't be practicing Sharia law in America. And politicians who turn a blind eye should be held accountable for this corruption. People hear Sharia law, you automatically think, oh, they're just picking at the Muslim people with their headscarf on. I was one of them. I covered my hair before. I started becoming bitter towards Americans and Christians and becoming hostile, and I had to check myself because I had family who believed different from me, and they were still good people. Mm-hmm. So when I look at Paul Renner's, some of the stances that he made, or that he's making, I went to an event and I asked him, what are you going to do about small business owners who fraud and exploit and traffic their employees? Will you stand up and speak up and denaturalize and deport them? And he said, absolutely yes. Mm-hmm. So I stand on that because these small businesses are out of control. They do exactly what they want to do, and they're not held accountable to any standard.
Absolutely. I think that's important. And if I may, because I do have the video of that response.
Yes.
I'm going to edit that in now. So if you'd like to see that. Awesome. So I think it's important that we look at candidates like Paul Renner and people who make those promises. And I'm glad that you brought up the fact that they're being punished and denaturalized. That's a really important thing, because if people are able to continue to stay here and continue to commit these crimes in our country, they should not be here.
No, we have enough criminals of our own to deal with, but we shouldn't be footing the bill for someone who doesn't want to be here and for someone who wants to exploit our vulnerable populations. Like I said, I mentioned before, Myles, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. If you are being exploited, if you are being frauded as an American citizen, you have rights. Who's standing up for the rights of American women and girls? That's a good question right there.
I'd say you are. I'd say with your advocacy, I think you are, absolutely.
Well, I'm humbled by it, but someone has to say something. I'm the underdog. I grew up in a homeless shelter, like everything that could happen, and I've just been observing, just watching people and watching their actions. And it's an election year, and you see every year people want to pander and make promises that they don't keep.
Absolutely.
But it's time for the American citizens to stand up and speak up and let the politicians know that they work for us. And we're going to hold them accountable.
Absolutely. So, and I wanted to go into the dangers of Sharia law. That's something I think is very important, and something I think that you would have a very important perspective on.
Yes. So, for myself, when I was married, my employer entered me into a fraudulent marriage. It was some type of green card scam, romance scam that I knew nothing really of. And the hard part about that is that when I tried to get a divorce, it was the Sharia law that was governed by their government system in Tunisia that kept me from getting a divorce.
Wow. And
within Sharia law, and I want every woman out here who has been into a domestic violence situation to really pay attention to this. The men in Islam have the sole right and authority to request a divorce. As a woman, you have no right. Shut your mouth. No right. You cannot request a divorce. The husband has to say talaq. He has to say, I divorce you 3 times before you get divorced. So if you're getting physically abused, shut your mouth. You can't say anything because you have to be subservient to me. No divorce. How is that okay in America? So I suffered. I went through that, trying to figure out how to get a divorce. And I had to play nice, and I had to go into survival mode. Just like that woman on Not Without My Daughter. You realize that there's no way to get out, and there's no way to ask for help, and you don't know who to trust or turn to. So, that's one issue with Sharia law, is that as a woman, you don't have those rights. Apostasy. If you leave Islam, you will be stoned. You will be killed. The blasphemy laws. All this is Sharia law. As a woman, even if your father or your parents leave you an inheritance, the male child gets more of an inheritance than you do. Doesn't matter if he's on drugs or he's unstable or he's an abuser himself. You have last pickings, and that I have a problem with. There's so much dangers with Sharia law. Just women, we deserve better. And especially in our country.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point you brought up. And when people look, like here in our own United States, look at Islam, they don't actually see any of that. They see, oh, it's another religion. Oh, it's just someone who believes differently.
I thought so too.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I took world religion in college. I wanted to do a deeper dive and get an understanding. And it was like the Venus flytrap. Once I got in there, it got me. But I've spoken to women who are trapped and they don't know how to get out of these situations. And, when I was in North Africa, my ex-husband had my passport. And that's very common for a lot of women. When you go there, they will hold your documents. For me, I got into a situation of debt bondage where I didn't know how to get out the situation. And, 10, 15 years ago, it didn't exist. The word human trafficking didn't exist. These different groups that want to control you and control your every movement. My every movement was monitored. I was only allowed to go home and to go to work. My phone was searched through by my employer to see what I was doing. I was isolated from family and friends, became brainwashed, and I actually started to believe that everyone on the outside was the enemy.
To anybody watching, none of the things that were just listed there is something a normal employer should be doing. Ever. It is never acceptable. I think it's really important you bring that up 100%. And I just heard a story earlier today. A British woman, she's trapped in, I think, Dubai now because they took her passport and she tried to escape her husband or something, and she's possibly at the wills of a firing squad because of her resisting her husband. Yes. It's ridiculous and it's insane. And
that's the law, and that's what a lot of women are fighting with Sharia law, even on foreign soil. You steal something, we're gonna cut off your hand. That's Sharia law. I mean, Disney tried to tell us for Aladdin, but for Aladdin, Jasmine did not want to marry Jafar. She did not want to marry all these suitors because she was being forced to be married. That's how it is.
That's really interesting. I didn't even think of it like that.
My daughter was watching Aladdin and she was like, "Mom, why does she have to get married?" I said, "We'll talk about that later." It's Sharia law in Disney. But this is what a lot of women go through. If you look at Iran, I have friends who I love dearly. I consider them as family. And they explain to you, you have to keep your hair covered. Like, good Lord, sweet Jesus, it's 98 degrees outside. So in
the middle of the Middle East.
In the middle of the Middle East. So if I show my hair or my neck or my ankles, you want to stone me? We have to do better than that, and we can't allow that to be something that takes place in America. The Sharia law courts versus our constitutional rights.
What even is the logic behind that, having to cover your hair?
So the logic behind that, which was told to me, is that you receive more rewards because men are not enticed by looking at you. So everything about a woman is appealing. So you want to reduce men's fantasies about you by covering up from head to toe. I know it sounds crazy when you say it really fast.
Yeah.
But why does that solely depend on me? Why can't you as a man have control and have willpower over your lustful thoughts and desires? Why does it fall on me? It's hot outside. You can wear shorts, but I can't wear shorts. You can go to the beach, but I can't go to the beach. I got to wear curtains and everything and go to the beach. No. Like, after a while, you're just like, this is sexist.
Absolutely.
This is not okay. Men, under Sharia law, you can have 4 wives, but a woman can't have 4 husbands. You know what that would be like to have dinner cooked, the grass cut, and that honey-do list done? No. But it's crazy because nobody is paying attention to the big picture. Young girls can get married. After if you're 9 or 10 and you've already come into womanhood, you can get married.
Didn't Muhammad marry like a 5-year-old?
8-year-old? 6 years old. Aisha, 6 years old, and he consummated the marriage at 9. So I guess to them they're on the same spectrum with R. Kelly, and age ain't nothing but a number. We see where that got R. Kelly.
Yeah.
With Aaliyah, like, people are starting to slowly wake up But in some countries, you can still marry a child. Child marriage is legal.
Mm-hmm. It's completely foreign to our values.
It is. Female mutilation, it's normal. Forced marriage is normal. That is not a society that goes with American values.
I think it's really important that you bring that up, and I want to see where you can make that link when it comes to Islam and human trafficking. Does the Quran say thou must human traffic, or where is that connection? Why is it so common?
Well, I mean, the goal with Islam, and this is not to offend anybody, I'm just being real because this is what I've experienced with my 13 years of living in it, being in it. I fasted for 13 Ramadans from sunrise to sunset, working at a restaurant. So that means no food or no drink for daylight hours. You can imagine what kind of willpower and discipline that I have.
See, I keep atonement, and that's one day out of the year, which is our Sabbath, where we don't have to do anything except go to church and come home. And that's all the fasting we have to do for the year. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
But we have to really look at this situation with our kids, and especially with our girls. And that's what I want to bring up, because a lot of young ladies, they want to be accepted. You want relationships, you want people to listen to you. And that pretty much seems a gateway. And that's why, when you have someone who wants to impose Sharia law, like I was trying to mention earlier, the more people that you convert to Islam, the better it is for you in Jannah, in paradise, or in heaven, as they would say.
Yep.
Now, it's like a conquest. Oh, I'm gonna see that Christian girl. I bet I can make her Muslim. That's a bet that some people have going on. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard it. To take someone who was a devout follower in Christianity and to turn them in Islam, you get ultimate bragging rights.
So is it bragging rights, or do they believe that it's an actual reward?
Well, urban-wise, I would say bragging rights, because you can hear the people back and forth. Oh, she converted to Islam. She did that. That's great. Mm-hmm. But it really is viewed as the saying is that if you save one person to Islam, it is though you save all of humanity. It's kind of up there with that 72 virgin things. I mean, it's... Yeah,
that's the whole thing I've never been able to understand.
I mean, one big old group... I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I mean, that's...
But remember, you got to cover your hair, though.
Right, but you have to cover your hair. And it's interesting because these men can look and flirt with any customer that comes into the restaurant, or they can have multiple wives, and they can be actively recruiting, even if their wife says no, because that's Sharia law. Your husband is entitled to have multiple wives, whether you know about it or not. And for me, that's not honest. That's not upfront. That's deception.
100%. That's not religion.
No.
That's not a relationship like with Christianity. That relationship with God. There's a huge difference there, and it's huge. It's huge.
I agree.
And when it comes to your advocacy, because I want to shift here, you mentioned something about 4th of July, and I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say about it.
All right, I know you can tell by the boots, right?
Yep.
So for the 4th of July, and I know this might sound crazy, but not to a lot of the viewers out there, God put it on my heart to do a pilot ride or caravan to Tallahassee, to the capital, because I really need to see, these smaller towns and just get a feel for the community on what we need to do about trafficking and how can we protect our citizens. So yes, I got on my bike. I had my crew. I biked all the way up there to about Live Oak. The weather was bad. Just everything happened, but I'm setting the stage for a rally to tally for human trafficking, because this is a major issue. And like what we were talking about earlier, Myles, it's not like this big bad guy with a turban has you chained to a radiator. No, because that's what I thought it was. But it's gradual. It's having that job where you're working 60 hours a week, 70 hours. For myself, I worked 84 hours a week.
That's ridiculous.
With a disability, 362 days a year for over 10 years. Not knowing how to get out, not knowing who to ask. I would, request days off, times off. It became a quid quo pro type of situation. Just sexual harassment in the workplace. And there's other people out there who are going through it who are too afraid to speak up. So I'm hoping that my story, that by me putting my foot in first, that they will stand behind me and we will stand together to stop this.
Stand together in a rally for tally.
And stand together for a rally for tally. So it will be online. We will be leaving with the next few weeks, just trying to get our sponsors together and, and have names of the survivors on their cars. Because everyone deserves a voice to tell their story. With my shirt, Survivors United Against Trafficking. Tell your story. Take that power back. That's the whole point of me being here, is just to encourage people to speak up.
Totally.
And if you see something, say something and do something about it. Don't just be a employee who sees his coworker being abused or sexually harassed by the boss and closing your mouth, because that doesn't solve anything. That
Exactly.
just makes the problem bigger than what it is.
Mm-hmm. I think that's huge, and I think a big part of it is people either not knowing that they're involved in it or being too scared to speak up. And you mentioned trying to advocate to get signs in the bathrooms.
Yes.
And I want to know, just talk about that, because I think that that's really important.
Well, I'm hoping that whoever our next Florida governor will be will actually listen to this. I went to the mosque for over 10 years. Not once in the restroom did I see a sign that said, if you are experiencing threats, violent behavior, call this number if you need help. Not one restroom. And what people don't understand is a lot of these women, they may come from another country, or they may be married into a arranged marriage. And the only place that these women go are the mosque, to the grocery store, and at home. And if they go to the grocery store, because quite often their husbands, because of Sharia law, does all the grocery shopping for them. So literally you have a controlled, limited environment with limited resources at home or at the mosque. And that goes for any religious institution. There should be human trafficking signs in the restrooms. There should be a power and control wheel in the restroom, so that you understand what your rights are, what's happened to you, and knowing that it's not okay.
Absolutely. I think that that's a huge point. Again, when it comes to not knowing or not having the resources, I think that is instrumental. And, again, it's not just Islam that's doing this. This can happen all over the world. And it's important, all over the world, all religions. I think it's huge that you advocate for that. And I think that hopefully whoever the next governor is, whoever the next president is.
Yes.
Donald Trump right now, I hope that this becomes a thing. So Donald Trump, if you're watching, you know what to do.
Listen, Uncle Trump, we know where you come from. You got to do something about this. So I'm going to keep on advocating until the president himself says, you know what, Tia, we're going to do this.
Absolutely.
Because it has to happen. I mean, just someone has to do it.
Next, we're going to go to Washington. It's going to be Rally for Wally.
And we're going to unite everybody, because honestly, I have met some people, who cannot stand President Donald Trump. But when I talk to them about trafficking, they're like, you're right. You are 100% right. What can we do to work together? Because it's bigger than politics. It's bigger than religion. It's bigger than race. No, this is something that's happening right in plain sight. It happened for me in plain sight for 13 years. I'm serving food. I'm giving food to politicians. I'm refilling their cup. Like, I literally lived as a modern day slave. My employer moved into my apartment, held me at gunpoint, and I just knew I'm going to die here. So, oh well. Like, I gave up. And nobody came to rescue me. Nobody came to save me. Not the people who look like me, who I voted for in my neighborhood. No. God sent someone in my path to explain that I needed to leave. But other than that, no one was trained. No one asked. No one cared.
It's terrible. That should never happen in the United States of America.
It shouldn't.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, and I want to continue to dive in because you said like you filled up the cups for the politicians.
Oh, yes.
I want you to go into Tunis and then the government officials who you've met that you've seen actively with this.
Yes. So, guys, I am the mouth of the South, independent journalist. After getting out of that situation, I said, you know what? I have to learn what I can. I have to do my research so that I can let other survivors know that they're heard because it happened to me. Mm-hmm. For me, I've had people like Corrine Brown come into our restaurant multiple times. Senator Hosendorf, Alvin Brown before he became the mayor. Plenty of donations were made to him. He couldn't have asked me, hey, sister, how you doing? How often do you work? You see me every time. Reggie Brown, Katrina Brown, Jerome Brown for the barbecue sauce scandal. My name is on an LLC that I never signed up for. Wow. I'm connected to the Jerome Brown barbecue sauce scandal and no connections.
That's insane. I just realized, hold on, because oh my goodness. Going to the Jerome Brown thing,
I looked online. My name is there. And I'm thinking, weren't they federally indicted? But I'm an employee. I just put ranch and napkins and ketchup in your bag. Like I'm the help. What do you mean? And out of fear, I didn't know what to say or who to go to. And when you have people like that who abuse their authority and abuse their power, and they know people in high places, things get swept under the rug. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go report anything to the EEOC because if you funded the mayor's campaign and you gave donations, he's not going to listen to me.
No.
I'm the last person. Why would you listen to me? I'm just a cashier. I just clean the floors and the bathrooms and cook. That's all I am in their eyes. And you can't really tell the police because there's police officers who get free food every day.
Yeah.
So it's just like I can't trust the police. I can't trust these government officials. I'm on my own. Can't trust my own family because everyone else is getting free food. So it's just me, myself, and I, and the good Lord. And it hurts because that was the black community. I would think that, being on Sutel Drive, I could talk to somebody. I could ask somebody to help get me out. And I would see other employees leaving or quitting, and I'm like, take me with you. Take me. But I didn't know how to ask for help. I was afraid, mm-hmm. And then being stuck with debt bondage and just not in a good situation, not knowing how to get out. That's why I think having signs in the restroom at all religious institutions, doesn't matter if it's Universal Unitarians, if it's for the Latter-day Saints, Hebrew Israelites, it doesn't matter. That needs to be a requirement to have it. See, I'm losing my voice. I get passionate. But it needs to be a requirement so people know how to equip themselves.
Totally.
Yeah, I want to know why people didn't speak up. Why nobody spoke up for me? Why nobody just asked, how are you? You just got cursed out by your boss in front of a lobby full of people. Are you okay? Nobody. Everyone was too busy, and I was the invisible girl from 18 to 32. I lost a lot of my life, but I gained a lot of knowledge so that I could help other people get out of the situation that I was in.
Of course. And I think the advocacy, I keep saying it,
yes,
is so important. And when we look at Florida, Jacksonville, the United States, you mentioned all of those politicians mm-hmm. that you saw walk in there, and you said they never once asked, how are you?
No.
All of those people either are still in government or have been in government and will never be held responsible for that. And it's ridiculous. I think it's very important that you brought up those names.
Well, you have to, because there are young people who are motivated. I was motivated. I struggled a lot in life, from homeless shelters to the Hubbard House to the Schallsbacher, taking city buses. I never skipped school a day in my life. Didn't get referrals. I was a model student because I knew that if I just keep my head in these books, I'm going to make it. I'm going to have a better life. But there are individuals who are predators who target that type of behavior. Come from a single parent home where your parents have been divorced, you have childhood trauma, they want more of it. And they want to get to know your deepest, darkest secrets, your insecurities, your fears, so that they can use it against you. I was traumatized as a child, with an abusive situation. I didn't tell anybody, but I told my employer. I just felt that somebody listened so I could tell.
Yeah.
And he exploited that. He held that against me and said, if you ever try to leave, I'll tell everybody. So now I'm going to tell my own business. I faced that.
Beat him to it.
I'll beat you to it. I'm going to tell on myself. I faced a lot of childhood trauma before the age of 10. And it's okay. I had to come to my healing journey. I had to go to counseling. I had to talk it out and come to the reality that I had to forgive myself. I had to go back and save that little girl and not worry about what other people are doing. So when I look at these politicians who have turned a blind eye or not even paying enough attention to know what was happening, it saddens me. Because there's other girls that it's still happening to and nobody cares enough.
Every single day.
Yes.
And I think a very important point you brought up is that every single day there's someone that this is still happening to.
Yes.
You went through this your entire life. You had to put up with this. But it's not just you. There are thousands, 250,000 girls in the UK that this exact same story happened to. Better or worse. Still terrible. And I'm so glad you're bringing light to it.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And, if you're out there and you want to talk about these things or if it's happened to you, reach out to me. I'm willing to meet people where they're at because this is a major issue and we have to do better from Jacksonville, Florida, all across the nation. And I've been to other states as a parental rights advocate. And for myself, I don't stay where the average person stays. When I went to Los Angeles, I stayed in Inglewood up to no good. Why? Because I want to see for myself the signs of trafficking. I see it there too, in these stores, in these restaurants. I've been to New York. I see it there too. All the different states that I go to the worst sides of town because I can recognize it because, as they say, game recognizes game. I can see it. And I know we have a country to clean up.
Absolutely.
Not just Florida, not just Jacksonville, but nationwide. We got some cleaning to do.
Best for president, right?
2028.
Well, that's awesome. So we're going to take our last and final break here, and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you guys for supporting our show. If you want to get your very own Make America Pray Again hat or Let God Planned Parenthood shirt, go to themylesruttencutterpodcast.com, and you can get your very own. Let's get back to the episode. All right, and we're back. So I want to ask this last part, for the last part of this episode, how did Jesus come into your life?
It's a very good question. So for me, I had a friend tell me about the abuse situation. And I went to the Hubbard house and they showed me a power and control wheel. And I started analyzing a lot about my life, knowing that it wasn't a good situation. And when I actually did get out of it, I left in 2017. I didn't know what to think about God or what to think about Jesus. I've tried so many different religions and beliefs that I had to just reset myself. I started going to a universal Unitarian church just to try to understand what I liked, what felt comfortable for me. And, I still had some hurt in me, but slowly I started to develop more so a relationship with Jesus. Not going by any labels or any titles, but really just developing that relationship and studying it for myself. And it was in 2021, I believe, that I actually stepped foot back into a church and I got baptized and slowly just started, following Christ. I'm not perfect. I'm a sinner, but I know that I have a testimony and I know that God brought me through this situation for a reason.
Absolutely. I think that's awesome. And
Thank
it's a
you.
great story. And it shows that you're able to overcome everything that you've been through. Jesus was able to bring you out of that. And, you know, he allowed you to go into that. You know?
Yes.
There's no thing that he lets happen without a reason.
Yes.
Right? And I think it's great to see and hear that story that, you know, you're an example. You were able to get out of that.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Now, I want to mention a couple things before we conclude. And it is for my viewers to go and watch the full video that talks about her entire story at The White Underbelly, A Black Woman's Odyssey.
Yep. So soft white underbelly.
Sorry, soft white underbelly.
on YouTube.
That can be found on YouTube.
Yes.
And then finally, how can my listeners help with you, whether it's the Rally for Tally or just advocating online? What else can they do?
Well, you can go online. You can share my videos. I definitely have a Give, Send, Go set up and a GoFundMe so that we can get this rally to tally started and bring awareness. Now, there's a lot of things that need to be done in our smaller communities. You know, obviously there's not enough funding. So if you're in a smaller town, you don't get the help that you need. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that we are able to bring awareness on all levels.
To impact every single woman possible.
Yes.
I think that's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. Bye.